So, work to game. Saying goodbye to Final Fantasy XIV. Now, I was on their podcast once upon a time a few years ago. I had a really good time chatting with them. And so I wonder, I'm just curious. I don't know anything about this, but I just want to know what's happened and why you don't want to make the content anymore.
But also how it will impact our collabs over at Work to Game and news coverage, as well as FanFest. So this video is going to be quite detailed.
Yeah, are you still going to do
my reasons first and foremost, and then I'm going to cover, kind of my plan going.
I wonder if it's just, are you not having fun anymore? Is that...
Anybody's been following my content for any period of
burnt
time,
out?
None of this should come off as a surprise. We probably had these conversations more in private and on stream. I want to be also very direct and not have set false expectations. This isn't a break. I've been and have taken breaks from Final Fantasy XIV. This is something very, very different. I'm actually not burned out of Final Fantasy XIV. This is something very, very different.
Not
I've
burned
experienced
out.
those things in the past. I feel like Final Fantasy XIV, I'm looking for them to invite me back into the game, and maybe 7.0 will be that re-invitation to the game. But don't misunderstand me. I'm not committing or promising that I will be back for 7.0 or 8.0. It's really going to be on Square Enix and to see if they kind of make a game that I want to play and I want to invest my time in, but that hasn't been the case, and that hasn't been the case for a while. I think it's been the story that's kind of held me on. The story's been completed, and after having finished Omni 90, I could tell you that experience was the hardest thing I've had to do. And
it's one of the problems I think with saying this is such a narrative game is that the story is really only a couple 100 hours long. So if the story is all that's holding you in this game, when people tell me that I can't like this game without liking story from when I was a story skipper, and like Zeppela used the term repentant when she reacted to that video, and I didn't like the term repentant because I'm not sorry about how I got here. So I'm not repentant. I'm very happy with how I got here. And it's very fair to say that the story was significant to you, but over the total number of thousands of hours that we play this game, the story alone can't sustain you. If you are a story exclusive player, honestly, a lot of the story exclusive players that stop by the community, a lot of them come by in the 0.4, 0.5 patch, they catch up, they blast through all the patch content, they deal with a little bit of the group content, they kind of dabble in things, the expansion comes out, they blitz through it, and then by the 0.1, they're gone again. And so they play this like a seasonal franchise that releases every other year that has a multiplayer component. And that's not the same way that the people who play it more like an MMO play it. And the difference there is that to play it as a more continuous year-round thing, you have to get well beyond story. I think there are people that are grinding tomes, or crafting and gathering, or clearing raids on any difficulty, or PvPing, or in Golden Saucer, or RPing, or something like that that is beyond story that allows for that total amount of time investment to scale well beyond a single or a second playthrough MSQ.
So he said that he's not actually burnt out. It sounds like he has some actual grievances with the game itself, like the way the game itself is run, the content in the game. You don't have to Omni 90. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't do that.
I mean, you do if you're going to make all the controller guides, right? So that's the problem. If you're going to make all the controller guides. So I think the Omni 90 thing was focused on by a couple of people over the last day. And so as we kind of put this to bed, this will probably be the last one unless Zeno posts his. There has been some points over the last day about he didn't have to Omni 90, but he had committed to the community that he would do all the controller guides for all the classes, and so you have to. So every day at the beginning of stream, I run a leveling roulette and an MSQ roulette on my story alt, because my story alt is what I'm doing my narrative playthrough through, because not everything's in New Game Plus. It really helps me mentally to have a character that like I know what I have done as a story skipper, because everything that character's done I took seriously, and that means when I get to things that I didn't skip, I'll get to do them again, and when I get to things I did skip, they're available, and that includes side quests, tribal quests, things that are not in New Game Plus, parts of relics and things like that I'm really enjoying getting to do. The intro part of a relic is not in New Game Plus, so there's little parts, odds and ends, and like I really enjoyed like unlocking. I enjoyed meeting the person that you got hairstyles from. That was like a wonderful little quest that is just gone once you've done it. And it would be very easy. I want to unlock this feature, escape, and then you have it. and it was really fun to get to do that. So I enjoy having a story character, but as a part of that, I have to level. So as somebody that has Omni 90, I have all my classes at 90. Blue Mage is at its cap. Crafters and Gatherers are at their cap. I have a reasonable amount of gear for a casual player. I'm very happy with where I'm at on my main. I ironically have to spend time leveling to do my story, but I don't want to level again. I just am leveling again, and I don't mind it. Like, I like leveling in MMORPGs. It's fine. It's satisfying to see the bars fill up. But this whole, like, you don't have to. Well, if I want to clear all the class quests, I do have to at least Omni 70, and there's a bonus quest at 80. So I have to Omni 80. I don't have to Omni 90, but I do have to Omni 80. I do have to get an Amaro mount just to see all of the story that is in the game. If you really want to have access and the opportunity to do each and every quest in the game. By the time I'm in Endwalker, I could pick one job per role, so it cuts down a little bit, but there's so much experience handed out across Endwalker MSQ, doing any of the Endwalker bonus content like the tribal quests, any of the side quests, and because those all scale, that I think, like, if you spread it around, if you just change to a job that can receive the experience, you likely will be Omni 90 if you come into Endwalker Omni 80. It's just provided. So, like, saying he doesn't have to be Omni 90, I just wanted to touch on that because I've seen it come up a lot. This idea of, like, well, he's burned out because he did this thing, duh. Well, there's two ways he consumed the game. He consumed the game as a player, but he also consumed the game as a content creator. And part of the content that he made is specifically tied to that. So if, like, Ash 10 didn't feel like leveling Crafters and Gatherers next expansion because he just didn't like the leveling process there, that would still be very hard for his style of content to exist without leveling Crafters and Gatherers across, honestly, multiple characters.
The reward isn't good enough. I omnied 80 because I got an incredible mount reward for doing that. I loved doing that because I got a big dopium at the end, but if you don't give me the... I mean, the level 80, all jobs to 80, all jobs to 90 reward is just a ribbon for your hair. You think I'm going to level Monk for that? I mean, okay, you're saying he did Omni 90 for the controller's guides that he promised his community. Okay, so he wanted to do controller guides, and that's why he got every job to 90, but he said he wasn't burnt out, so I don't think that's...
And so it's been an incredible journey. During said time for this game, I wasn't even married. I had no kids. Now here I am as a father of 5. And that's really the first reason.
He has 5 kids? Oh my god, I had no idea. No wonder he's quitting Final Fantasy XIV. Holy shit. That's all you had to say? Just say, well, I have 5 children. Okay, well, sir, that's completely understandable.
I want to invest more time
Best of luck
in my
to you.
family. Clearly, they are everything
Jesus.
To me, and I've been coaching. I would be
Look,
getting.
I want to say I'm happy for him. That's great, but still, I cannot wrap my mind around the time investment that you would need to raise 5 children. 5 children in your house.
Up at 5 a.m. every day. I'd be going to bed after 10. Like, these are some very long days that I have to be as a provider for the family, but also try to be present for the family, and at the same time also working on content. People will often ask,
understandable.
how do you do it, Brian? I can't, like, you put out content, you're doing all these things, how are you doing it? And it's like, I would always say, like, I get up, I get up before everybody else does.
You do not have to make any other justifications for people at all.
I'm up very early and I'm going to bed very late, and that takes a toll. That takes a big toll on anybody, right?
I can't believe he's been able to make any videos.
Feel very complete with the way that Final Fantasy XIV ended. I don't like how it ended personally, and you can go watch that video if you're interested, because I'm not rehashing it here, but I feel complete. I feel very satisfied with my experience, and that's why this all falls down into.
That makes sense too, because Endwalker was designed to be like the end of this long story arc. So it, like, if you were already felt like you need to step away, that feels like it would be the right time to do so, just thematically. Like, you're not ready to start onto this brand new adventure and the brand new arc that's going forward. You don't want to get too invested in it again if you already felt like other factors were pulling you away.
Will they re-invite me back into the game?
I think that's, like, it's a really fair point, and I think it's when people talk about 14 not taking risks, that was a huge risk. To basically give a universally accepted off-ramp to the entire community. to say, anybody that wants to leave, I'm going to give you all the reasons in the world to peace out. That's a really bold risk from an industry that relies on consistent monthly active users and seasonal content to try to constantly fuel that, and constant marketing campaigns and community events and retention mechanics. And, you know, and every game handles it a little differently. And Yoshi P has said publicly take breaks, but internally, we have things like weekly tome caps, we have challenge logs, we have new content constantly, we have things that come in like tribal quests that are behind daily lockouts. If you go away for more than 45 days, you lose your house. If you plant crops, they have to be checked in on all the time. And so like even 14, that is considered to be fairly generous with retention mechanics compared to other games, it still has them. Like, they still want you to play their game. They're not like, please take a break. Please, get out of here. Go, come on. Like, they really do. They want you to play. They just don't want you to play if you're not having fun. They don't want to hold you hostage, but they do want you to play, and they create a lot of reasons to keep playing time and time and time again. And for Endwalker to play out the way it did, it felt like they very, very, very logically said, if you want to try another game, now's the time. December 2021, wrap it all up. If you can get onto the server, great. Once you're on, play for about 100 hours straight, and then you can just leave. If you don't have any other commitments to a static or to a community you're a part of or whatever, you can just go. And I think a fair number of people have, and that doesn't mean they're gone forever. You know, I've heard Breach is returning to WoW, and like, there are people that I'm already seeing the comments. Like I said, it's overwhelmingly positive, but there are people saying like, good, stay. But like, he doesn't have to stay. He doesn't have to come back. There is no commitment based on him saying goodbye that he can't come back. Like, he can come back anytime he wants. He can also not. Like, it's entirely his choice.
Game.
Yeah, that's valid.
Time will be the teller here, but no, I'm going to pour myself into that. I want to invest in my family. I want to invest in my health so that I can continue to be with my family.
That's
that
reason
really ties
number
into,
one.
like, I'm not streaming late at night. I can't keep getting up at this early. I'd rather be investing my time if I'm going to get up early and exercise and making sure that I'm eating right and meals are planned so that I can try to be there for them for as long as I can.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna say the game is bad, and I could. But it turns out I feel like I'm the one getting memed on.
Getting invited back to shows and just ultimately really having a wonderful time with stand-up comedy. It's incredible for my mental health. There is so much that I get to explore, and I get to be funny, and I get to just really kind of not have to worry about the internet and the rules of the internet. Being a stand-up comedian, maybe I can get to the point where I can take the show on the road, and maybe more people can then be a part of that. And so the second piece of this is that I'm going to invest more time into my stand-up, into writing jokes.
Okay.
You know, so again, family comes first, comedy right there after that. And then the third reason, which also won't come as a shocker for those of you who've been...
That's going to be a hard balance on its own. Just based on anybody I've seen try to have a lifestyle in entertainment, that's especially entertainment that takes place at night, or friends that have done things like be bartenders and stuff. That's going to be a hard balance on its own. That's just a reality that we all have a limited amount of time in a day. And so if you start designating your time elsewhere, like that's what the community support in theory offers, is somebody to dedicate more time and more resources to making content. And maybe they continue to have their full-time job. Like generally, if those are his two top priorities, just be aware, guys, like, you know, we'll navigate it. Work to Games made it through a ton of adjustments. I worked like 100 hours a week mid Stormblood, and we still posted. What it ultimately meant was there was a while where he posted a lot of videos without me in a row. And when the seasons of life changed again, and I had time to be more involved again, I came back. And anybody that we gained during that window said, oh, this Chris guy's kind of cool, I guess. I remember Work to Game back before there was a Chris. And that just... like, that was just because I was less around. And so, like, if Brian needs to be less around, he'll be less around. If Brian, I want Work to Game to remain collaborative. He wants it to remain collaborative. We'll continue to update you guys. Work to Game has shifted to being almost exclusively collaborative. Anything guide-based, anything that's just one of us on camera, has absolutely moved to me doing it on Twitch, occasionally on Gaming Kinda, or him pushing it somewhere within the Ginger Prime.
New World is just so effing good. It is such a great game, and it...
Is it? What year is it? Hold on.
This is my goal for next year, is to get to know more games, because I saw somebody defending 14 the other day saying that people who hated it hadn't even played it, and like, it's really, that cuts every direction. It's really easy to see something, make your opinion about it, and then because your opinion is shaped and can be verified by other people who maybe also didn't play it, you can just charge on without trying it. So I've seen her try Guild Wars, and watching Zeppla play Guild Wars, lurking in her stream, she plays games new for the first time very much in a way that I relate to, in that, like, I'm constantly like, why is this like this? How is this like this? Where is this person? And that could come across as very critical. If you know the game, you're like, why are they just play the game? But like, actually, the fact that she seems to keep doing it says that she's probably enjoying it. And so that's what tells you guys that I enjoy a game, is it keeps coming back over and over and over and over. And like, as much as I complained about Guild Wars early on, I'm getting really close to my Sky Scale, and I'm having a blast. So I think, like, with New World, we knew that the original hype couldn't be maintained, and it dropped way down. People said it's dead, and it's like, well, we knew it would do that. The question is, like, do they keep sticking around? Like, to prove everybody wrong, there was nothing they could say. There was nothing they could say before release. There's nothing they could say during the hype. There was nothing they could say after the fall. There was nothing that could be said. All that could be all of it had to be done. So the question is, what are they doing? And so my plan next year is to spend a little more time with New World. Final Fantasy XIV will remain my primary focus, but New World is on my list of games to just have a better awareness to. And when asked how I decided what game got to be the fourth MMO I want to have some awareness of, I try to stay generally aware of what's going on in World of Warcraft, I stay generally aware of what's going on in Guild Wars, and I stay heavily immersed in the 14 community. I added New World as the fourth game, and people, when, you know, how did you pick that over all of the other games that are out there? I said, because I liked playing games with Brian. Because I knew that's where his time is. And it's fun when he has those conversations to be able to converse back and not just nod my head.
If you love New World, then maybe you just want something else out of a game than what Final Fantasy can give you. Glad someone likes it, right? I'm not...
Those things.
I mean, New World also just asks different things of where your time goes. A lot of the things that Brian has said he likes about New World and that he looks for in 14, I have found in 14. But I am playing 14 differently, fundamentally differently than the way he plays 14. And so I am finding different things, just like I play New World fundamentally different than him. And so sometimes it feels like we're looking for the same things, and we're finding them in different places. And that's okay. Imagine if you went out to a restaurant and they had a 20-page menu and everybody at the table ordered the same thing. What is that doing? So, like, ideally, you're saying, okay, like, I like these things. You're like, oh, I want something that's satisfying and you know, is like the best foods and has like a side with it and a meat and comes with a beverage. And it's like, yeah, but that describes every freaking meal. That describes every freaking meal. So we're not all ordering the same things. So if New World is the better fit for his taste, continuing to come out with us to, you know, the Final Fantasy dinner over and over and just choke it down doesn't make any sense. Just order New World. Like, who told you to order what we're ordering?
Things being somebody who has limited time, somebody who wants to spend his time and put them in the right buckets, leads me to saying, if I can play just one game, what game do I want to play? And this all came to a head when both New World and 14 had an update on the very same day. 14 deserves better than me having to force myself to play it for the content. And when...
Well, you should never force yourself to play a game for the content. If you're not having fun, you should not play that. Because people they can tell. But, like, the viewers are incredibly perceptive. They can tell when you're having a good time. They can tell when you're not having a good time. They can tell when it's forced. They can tell when it's not. And you're not. It doesn't work like that way. You cannot force yourself to do it and expect any kind of success or results out of that, because I mean, they're with you.
There was a huge time where Zeppla said that, I think she made videos titled, like, why I only need to play Final Fantasy XIV. Like, why that's enough of, like, that's the only game. And she covered interviews where Yoshi P's like, when I get off work from working on Final Fantasy XIV, I play Final Fantasy XIV. And she's like, I know! And, like, it was... And yet, like, that changes. That changes. Now she's gotten... I've seen her playing other games, and And she may go back to, as we build to 7.0, you may go back to like, when's she gonna ever try that other game? And she doesn't. She's just perfectly 100% satisfied in 14. So I think she's being very fair here, and I think she's basing that on her own experience. I mean, she puts out an incredible amount of content. Within all of the content creators of 14, 14 has a very small group of content creators compared to other games of this size or larger, like World of Warcraft. And when I think of a content creator, I typically think of them in any given 30-day period as being predominantly a Twitch, a streaming, a live content, a long format creator. And then there is this shorter form content, and that's everything from shorts to documentary style stuff. And documentary style stuff just as like a highly edited, highly curated. So not necessarily documentary per se. Like I would throw Joe Cat or Pint in there where it is this highly refined content. And that's what's brilliant about it. And in any given 30-day period, 90-day period, I don't see many people that can do both. One is always riding second to the other. And there are very few creators that I can think of that can do both. And it doesn't feel like one is just the result of the other. And I think Zeppla is one of them. I think she's done a brilliant job being what feels like a perfectly talented and whole and complete YouTuber. If you only view her on YouTube, that feels like a complete Zeppla experience. And if you only view her on Twitch, that is a complete Zeppla experience. And so the fact that she's able to do both of those things simultaneously on just one game requires an incredible amount of self-discipline. It requires an incredible amount of knowing when she's having fun, when she's not, when to push, when not.
The viewers are along for the ride with you, and if you're not enthusiastic about it, then it's just not going to be fun for anybody. And it won't be sustainable in terms of like your energy.
I was kind of feeling it, and I was kind of questioning it, and I was hoping that maybe the updates would be staggered, so yeah, I could be a part of, you know, both, because Final Fantasy is a good game. Like, hopefully none of this comes across as like, oh, you shouldn't play Final Fantasy. Now, I'd still highly encourage you to check it out if you never played Final Fantasy. But at its core, I wanted to be in New World. That's where I want to spend my time when I have time to game, and that's where
I did not expect this. I haven't been keeping up to date with him, so actually, you know what I would love to see is a video explaining in detail like what is so amazing about New World that is way better than Final Fantasy, because I feel like
she's gonna want specific points too, so like not just like I assume Brian already has the why New World's great. I think a specific comparison, but like I think that if he remakes this video, if this is something that he decides to do 6 months from now or whatever, going back and watching these and clipping those up and saying like, okay, and here are the things that are making New World a better fit for me right now, and why that does not contradict points 2 and 1. I think you'd have to be really specific so that people don't immediately just go, huh? Like he knows the reasons, but the video, like, I've already seen the next 7.5 minutes, and it doesn't really get that much more specific. So I think she's still gonna have that feeling at the end.
I love that New World feels like it's a game that they're willing to take risks, and I really appreciate that, where in Final Fantasy's terms, whether it's Square Enix, a budget, or whatever, it's a game that just doesn't take risks. It's a game that we've advocated for risk taking, but either they're just too burnt by the original launch, too scared, or from a financial perspective, it just isn't in their best interest, and I can respect that, but I wish they would. I wish 14 was a game that took risks, and it's just not anymore. It honestly feels, and I'm sure this is going to be probably the most upsetting thing I say in this video, honestly feels like it's a game that's designed as a way to placate angry WoW players. It's a game that's set up to catch
what?
So I disagree with that, because you don't get to be an industry leader chasing someone else. So like I think there is this idea of 14 is chasing WoW still. I don't think they are anymore. I think they're chasing being the best global MMO on the market. And whether they hit it or don't hit it by whatever metric is fine. And that's for the history books to decide. But I don't think at this point, Yoshi P, I think he's continuing to learn and watch and keep an eye on other MMOs. He's admitted there are people on his team that that's their job, of telling me what's working, what's not working elsewhere. That's great R&D, but he's not chasing them. He's not chasing them. The objective is not to become them, because the objective is so much further past that. Phil Spencer, when talking about his vision for Xbox as he moved into Game Pass and acquiring studios and everything that's happened over the last couple years, there was an interview where they said, going into this console gen, you know, how do you feel competing against PlayStation? And he said, I'm not. I'm competing against Amazon. I'm competing against Google. I'm competing against Apple. He's competing against people that have regular touch points in people's lives well beyond a piece of gaming hardware. Because that's what he's competing against. Netflix. You know, and so I don't remember the exact companies he named, but they were like massive companies. And it got taken as this dig towards PlayStation. So I don't think I mean that, like, I don't think Yoshi P means that sort of, that feeling that he phrases things as a dig towards WoW. And he does dig towards WoW occasionally. But I think it's not that WoW isn't something that I admire things about. It's that aiming for them wouldn't be aiming far enough.
So this whole time, are you telling me that Final Fantasy XIV predicted from its inception that World of Warcraft would make people match, and they built their entire game upon that premise, knowing that one day the WoW players would be matched and they would need a new home? That's what Yoshi P said at the start.
14 became the landing place because it was in the number 2 spot, right? Luck is preparedness meets opportunity. They weren't lucky that WoW players came over. They were in the second position when it happened. They didn't have to make it happen. They just needed to be in the second position at the time it happened. So it was a natural thing to try. Now, if they had tried it and it had sucked, it would have kept nobody. And it wouldn't have been in the second position in the first place. So I do think there's like some projecting that goes on from WoW to 14 and 14 to WoW, where like there's this idea that like 14 is that people only play 14 because they hate WoW. And like just honestly slow down and think about that for a moment. The idea that somebody would pay monthly to log in and put dozens or hundreds or thousands of hours into a game, and every moment of that game they go, I hate this. But somewhere, some World of Warcraft employee has secretly acquired the real monthly active user data from Final Fantasy, and it was exactly 10 hours over the limit where they were going to be concerned. And because of my 10 hours last month, they're worried. Nailed it. And so, like, I do think there is this kind of projection that happens. And most commonly, I see this projection. I see it both directions. So this is not a dig on, like, any one particular person. But most commonly, I see this projection from people that have only spent a substantial amount of time in one of the two games. I encourage you to go play the other game, if for no other reason than to make you more aware of what your game is doing well and where your game still has room to improve. But heaven forbid you actually have fun on the other side. So there is a lot of projecting here, and like I do kind of group Brian into that. Brian is the other half of Work to Game. He's one of my closest friends. We've known each other for well over a decade. But every time we talk about World of Warcraft, there is this part of my brain that has to filter the things he says through the fact that he's never been at level cap. And that's not meant to be some dig or some he's not valid of his views, but it is an asterisk. Because if you play a game like Final Fantasy XIV or World of Warcraft and you try the game out, I think that's wonderful. And I hope you have a blast. And if you don't, and you think it's not something you want to play after 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, that's fine. And you are welcome to your opinion. It is valid, it is reasonable, and I encourage you to follow it. But when we talk about those games and things like what they need to do different and comparing them to each other, and you have not made it to level cap, which compared to the total experience ends up being just the tiniest little rock at the base of an enormous mountain, it is very hard to assume that all of your points of view are going to be thorough and prepared and not filled with something where you are asking for something that is already in the game, or you are criticizing something that is already fixed. And it's something I've worked on a lot as Brian and I have gotten bigger. I understand that some of these comments in these various things have said, because we don't have 100,000 subscribers, we're not entitled to any place on the internet or whatever. And that's fine. But because of the number of people that have supported us and the number of people that have invested their time and their energy in us and the community that's formed around us that's bigger than us and has organized events that we're not even a part of, I have felt a desire to go experience Savage and to go experience Extreme and to go learn the story and to go try these things. And some of these things I've tried them and I haven't enjoyed them. And I'm like, yep, that's exactly what I expected it to be. I tried to go in open-minded. It's not for me. But there have been other things that it has opened up a whole new way to enjoy the game. And so I just encourage, whenever I see one game get compared to the other, the WoW and the 14 thing, I really encourage anybody that wants to make those comparisons and make that reference to try whatever that other game is. So if you want to rip on New World, rip on New World. But why don't you go download it first and give it an honest shot? And if you want to rip on Guild Wars, rip on Guild Wars. But why don't you go download it first and give it an honest shot? $1 per hour, there is no cheaper form of entertainment than an MMORPG. So it is hard to believe anybody has access to regular internet and the hardware necessary to play an MMORPG and cannot, given enough time, get over the pay barrier to at least try these games.
When Yoshi P took control of 1.0 and they told him to fix it, he's like, and they were like, hey, you should make a really good Final Fantasy MMO. And he's like, no. I've seen a vision. I've seen a vision of a man. His name was Bobby Kotick. And in this future that I've seen in my dreams, all of the WoW players were crying.
I mean, careful with this example, Zeppela, because he did say that a lot of what he tried to fix about 1.0 was to look at what was successful in the space, and that a heavy portion of that came from World of Warcraft. So I don't know where she's going with this, but be careful.
Crying tears, and I need to collect these tears, and we need to create a crystal from their crystallized tears, and this will be the crystal that our game will be built around, and give them a new place to live and be free. This is what our game is supposed to be. Let's go get to work studying World of Warcraft so that we know exactly what kind of game to build for these people, okay?
Player who gets so angry at World of Warcraft, here's a nice place to land. And that's a great business model. Honestly, it's pretty damn smart. And at the end of the day, it's just not a game that exists for me anymore. And that's perfectly fine. Not every game has to be for Brian. And despite my time with it, I don't regret any of the time I spent in 14. I don't regret helping people get into the game at all. But it's time for me to say...
He said, I think he was projecting what he feels the game is now. Do you think that it's just like worded weirdly? Ultimately, what I want for him is to play a game that makes him happy. Okay, like I would hate to see somebody feel like they're pressured to continue to play when they're not having fun. Like, your life is short and there's no time to do that, and it's not even an effective business strategy.
And I really want Final Fantasy XIV to do better and to be better. And it's unfortunate that as a game, it's become that. It's become a game where the idea that it could improve is such an insult to people, versus where in New World, like saying the game can improve, everybody gets excited. Like,
I don't think that's true, dude. Like, I think that it's not an insult to say the game can improve, because we pretty much talk about ways the game can improve every day on here. Like, I think every single day we talk about some way that the game can improve.
I think during mid Shadowbringers, there were some times it was really hard to vocalize concern. I think the game was in a really healthy spot. I think there's been a lot of frustration mixed in with all the joy this expansion. It's been too much joy for people to just leave. So like, we have a large active population right now. Yes, people have bled off from the story. Yes, people have bled off just because it's a game we can take breaks from. But there are still a lot of people around. And but among those, like, I don't think anybody's saying it's perfect. There are people that You know, maybe they're frustrated with the balance in Crystalline Conflict. Maybe they think that P8S could have been handled differently. Maybe they feel like the add-on stuff should have just one more discussion. And, you know, maybe housing is what frustrates them. Maybe it's just that the glamour dresser is just never going to be large enough under the current glamour system. I think there are valid concerns. If you want to criticize the game, though, because so much of it is positive, I do think you need to be very, very precise. And so one of the things I think Zeppela has done that was a very good job is like around the add-on stuff, and just instead of just saying add-ons are bad, okay? I think she's done a great job of saying like, okay, you don't want add-ons, but you want to learn from it. Let me go out to Twitter. Let me go collect a whole bunch of suggestions, and let's go through some of the things that the native game could do a little bit better, where add-ons were kind of doing this against terms of service. You know, talking about like, what are things we could learn from other games? But I think you have to be very precise because the overall view of the game is still very positive. In the past, there have been times which criticism for criticism's sake has been widely hated on. But we have seen a massive surge in the acceptance of videos from people like Zeppela and Xeno that are just being critical. They're just being critical. But they're being critical from a point of love. They're being critical from a point of wanting it to do better, and not saying in a point of entitlement where if they don't do my things it's because they don't want it to be good. They're just saying like, I think it could be better, and I'm not just tossing that suggestion out like just be better or just stop doing the bad things, but like, here's specific examples of areas that I think we could see improvement. Here's why I think they could see improvement. Here's a suggestion of one of the ways I would solve this if it were me or somebody else has suggested, or how another game has maybe handled it that might, some portion of that might work here, or some portion of that might be an example of what not to do. And I think there's a lot of examples there. I think where he's going to continue coming into trouble, if he continues to cover 14 on his 14 channel, is if he's not specific. And so ideally that's something that, while staying connected to the game, ideally that's something that hopefully I can help share with him everything he needs to kind of know from anything he misses as far as patch notes or what's going on in the community. Hopefully he's still consuming other content creators, and so he still has those talking points even though he's not maintaining a subscription. I'll enjoy discussions with him either way. I've enjoyed discussing New World with him. We've talked about, you know, Ashes together. We've talked about Nintendo together. I have a blast talking about games. Talking about games with Brian is what started Work to Game. That I'm not worried about. But as far as like, if community hate is the thing to be avoided, precision is something that is asked of criticism of Final Fantasy XIV by and large.
In my experience, most people are happy to discuss that. In fact, it's one of the people's favorite things to talk about, is ways they want the game to improve. Like, this is all we talk about. Really. And
he does that in New World. He puts out a post going over numbers and the analytics and stuff and all the Steam charts and all that. And those posts are like, this is why I subscribe. Like, those comment sections are widely positive when I go read the comments on his New World videos that are like very like, let's take a look at some numbers and then put my opinion in there.
Like,
better.
Okay, hear me out. I'm gonna put this as delicately as I can. If you're saying that from the perspective of someone that is not enjoying it, not having a good time, feeling forced to do it for the content, and then you make comments about that, and it's not fully from a place of like optimism for the game and seeing the potential for the game in ways that you're excited about, ways it could improve. If you do that from that other perspective of like, oh, well, this other game is way better and I wish this game was more like that other game.
I don't even think you have to be that positive. I think there are a lot of people that like Zeppela because she always puts that positive spin on things. But if you're gonna be hateful and bitter and you don't want the response to be just go play something else, it better A, be actionable, and B, be very precise in why you're frustrated.
I'm like, this has got this problem and I'm just not having fun. Like, people will be able to pick up on that, and no matter how good your intentions are, no matter how good your point is, it will come across to people and they will not take it as well as if you had given that exact same suggestion in a different mindset. Like, people...
And it can't always be anger. Xeno's not always angry. If you've ever watched him prog raid, he's very calm. He's very calm. So anger when things are worth being angry at is very fair. But misplaced anger gets you in a world of hurt. It's not fun to watch.
people will notice, and it's just
to
not
be
going
better.
to.
And it's unfortunate
That's my take on
as
that.
a game, it's become that. It's become a game.
There are some random FFXIV Andes who act like the game is perfect and it cannot be improved, but it's a tiny, tiny minority of people. Like, it's such a small fraction of people that are like that.
Where the idea that it could improve is such an insult to people.
He said New World launched with a ton of problems, so of course people are more open to change. FFXIV can improve as well, but I think how is more divisive. Maybe it's just because there's way more people playing Final Fantasy XIV, so that's why there's more opinions about ways that it can and should be improved. So, because there's just a shitload more people.
No. I think opinions are like butts, or whatever the phrase is. Everybody's got one. So, like, I don't think it's that there's not plenty of opinions in New World. I think it's the first part. I think it's the first part. So the commenter, her, either way, that nailed it. The reason I think criticism towards 14 is more reasonable as a point of discussion now than maybe sometimes in the past is that it is easier to see how somebody might be upset with part of this game but like the game overall than when points in the game were maybe overall more just well done for the time period. And so it is easier. And so when things are going wrong, that makes it easier for us to say, I want it to be better. And somebody goes, you know what? I don't agree with you on how, but I also want it to be better.
People who were way invested in the game and have been for many years. And so with more and more people, you're going to have more and more debates and controversies. It's natural.
Versus where in New World, like saying the game can improve, everybody gets excited. Like, yes, oh my gosh, imagine when we see this happen and when we can get this kind of content.
Okay, I'm not going to sit here and dunk on New World, okay? I don't want to do that because let me tell you something.
I think as a video that is going to reach people who don't play New World inherently, even if this had not spread outside of his community, the fact that he was posting it to people that only play 14, I think that would have been another great place to name some examples. And you can say that, like, people are really excited about Brimstone because it's the first time that we are going to be seeing great swords and things like that, getting a new weapon, and weapons define the combat system. So it's just really going to offer new build varieties and new changes. I think that kind of example would have really benefited this when people, when you have people that go like, isn't that a dead game? Isn't New World bad? Like, I think it would have been a lot easier to say New World's in a really good spot as they continue to organize PvP events and have community events on a regular basis. And it's really easy to be excited with the amount of information coming around the following events. The fact that there's a seasonal event is incredibly challenging. The fact that they've added a new zone to the game that has people who only play the game casually mistaking it as an expansion. It's not an expansion, but it is so much content that people are calling it expansion, and people are really excited about that because the game is growing and moving in a positive direction. I think some phrasing there could have been the same point and maybe won her over a little bit more, because already when he brought up New World, whatever that was, 30 minutes ago, she already like had disengaged, and the way to get her back on board is you got to build that bridge. And instead it's still very vague, and like gingerprime community that knows gingerprime, all the New World stuff, is like, yeah, I'm on board. I'm totally, I love your coverage. But this video is going well beyond that.
When I saw New World being advertised, I said here on stream, I don't care about that game. It doesn't look interesting to me. And then it came out and everybody got into it. And I said, well, I still don't really care about that game. It's just not that interesting to me. And then everybody went away from the game. And I said, well, I never tried it because I didn't care about it before it came out. I didn't care about it when it was hype, and I don't care about it now. And I'm still in that same exact opinion about New World. So.
And this would have been his chance to maybe plant a little bit of that seed so that if New World ever was a game that fit Zepla, let's say today it's not, just objectively, and that 2 years from now, hypothetically, it's the perfect game for wherever Zepla is in 2 years and where New World is in 2 years. They're just at this perfect juncture. Because of opportunities like this, not planting that seed, she might just pass it by. So like seeing her try Guild Wars and things like that, that's a wonderful thing. And the like, she is an incredible voice for the game she loves. So if there's any chance that a Final Fantasy video has a chance for her to go, I hate New World a little bit less. Like, I think that's a good thing, just for the gaming genre in general, that we can plant that seed. Because it's not just about Zeppelin in particular, but anybody that's watched this video and gone, New World, what the hell?
I don't want to, I'm just telling you that I could, like, I don't think there's a game. There are a few games that I care so little about.
And 14
have
is
so
a
little
very
interest
defensive
in.
and in a way insecure kind of defensive. I always kind of was confused by that mindset.
That's why I said earlier, I would like him to make the video that is what I like about New World that it has that FFXIV doesn't.
Oh, if he had that video live today, I bet she'd watch it. If he had planned this and then that video had gone live the very next day, the 10 reasons that New World is a better fit for me than Final Fantasy, she'd watch that.
I genuinely would like to see that video, that perspective, because I don't know a lot about that game because I have had so little interest in it, but there's always something that you could learn from another game. Like, there's always something that, you know, what itch is it scratching that FF14 can't? Like, I think that you should be open-minded in hearing him out, hearing that, you know, what's caught his attention that maybe our game could take into account and consider.
A lot of the criticism that is being leveraged at 14, that is being responded to by devs, is tackling Savage balances, PvP balances, housing, right? And a lot of the love letters of content that's going to be this living, breathing thing is around the changes in the relic system, island sanctuary, tribal quests, and a lot of the varieties looking for is behind tome progression. So expert roulettes, hunt trains, you know, and like everything I just named are all things that Brian does not heavily engage in. So because he doesn't do a lot of Extreme and Savage, when the community complains about Extreme and Savage, you're not relating to them. So you feel like nobody's ever allowed to complain about this game because the people that are complaining aren't talking to you. And when the devs respond to them, the devs are like, hey, we're going to fix this balance change. You're like, who even cares? They care. And so, like, each of those examples in their own way is something where the devs either have already given feedback or have said they're going to continually iterate on that just don't affect Brian. Because Brian said, I don't like to do relics till the end. I don't like to gear up till the end. I don't like to set aside time for Savage. I don't like to grind a tome cap. Island Sanctuary wasn't for me. And so this current state, this current exact moment in Final Fantasy just doesn't have anything where he is going to get to complain as part of a large group of people complaining and get feedback. Because there are large groups of people complaining and they are getting feedback, but he's not a member of those groups. Just by his own choice. He would be welcome in them. People have invited him. You know, it just hasn't worked out, right? So I do think, like, some of the things where I have seen, like, when he and I had this conversation privately, before he filmed his video, before he posted his video, when we've been having these conversations privately, all of the things that he's said about why he's going to New World sound an awful lot like all of the reasons that I am playing more 14, thinking about more 14, planning for more 14 than ever before.
I really struggle to understand this point. I really do. I think that you said you weren't burnt out.
But that's essentially my plan, and those are the reasons why Final Fantasy XIV isn't the game for me. I really would love for it to become a game for me again. I've debated regarding FanFest. I want to go because even if it's 7.0 isn't a re-invitation, I want to hang out with everybody. We haven't had a physical FanFest in a while, and it'd be really great to see everybody, to hang out with everybody, to share that experience, if not at least for one last time, one last hurrah. But I'll keep you guys up to date on what that plan looks like, because I don't know.
I couldn't ever imagine not going to FanFest, but it's me, so it's really hard for me to put myself in this in his shoes and in his perspective. I cannot imagine what his life is like. Even in times, I guess BlizzCon is a good example. Even in times when I didn't care about WoW, and I kind of burned out from WoW, and I didn't want to play WoW anymore. Even then, every time BlizzCon rolled around, I wanted to see it. I wanted to at least watch it, and but then again, it's me, and I feel like we're just really different people because I get...
No, I don't think that element's different. I think there are people that just like like those conventions are really fun. There's also people that don't like those. World of Warcraft is a huge part of Asmongold's life, and he, like, it doesn't sound like when he talks about BlizzCon that that's his favorite thing. So I think, you know, I would love to go to another BlizzCon, whether or not any of the Blizzard games were in my life.
Hopefully none of this is surprising. Hopefully none of this upset you.
It was surprising.
Let me know one way or the
But
other.
if it upset you, then you need to check yourself, because if you're upset about this, then that's really dumb. Like, you should not be upset about this. You should be happy for him. You know, listening to himself is the thing that I tell you guys to do all the time. Check to see, are you having fun? Are you having a good time? And if you're not, you need to make a change, because life is too short.
Thanks you guys so much again for your time. Thanks for listening to these words. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Until then,
I really was, I wanted to understand his point of view. It's not a good tactic to say, people get insulted if you suggest improvement, and then not elaborate on points. That's fair. I do agree with that. I think really the thing that rubbed people wrong with this is more the complaints that he made about Final Fantasy specifically not feeling especially fleshed out. It felt more like he's just more interested in New World. And the specific complaints felt a bit weird. It was hard for me to understand them. And just, like, some of them didn't make any sense. Like the one about, you know, the game is built for WoW refugees, which that makes no sense at all. I really don't see anything in the game that would lead you to that conclusion. Because it's not. Besides being a good MMO. There's nothing about it that is, like, geared towards WoW players in any way. It's just a good MMO, so that's attractive to MMO players. So some of it was weird, but give the guy a break. He has 5 kids. Jesus. Like, I really have a lot of sympathy for him. But I do also feel like people, I can't shake this feeling like people are really dogpiling on him and being super harsh in a way that I don't feel is entirely justified. But then again, I haven't really watched his videos lately. I've heard some people complain to me that they felt like there was a lot of clickbait he was doing.
I mean, I think, so I've seen this leveraged at any time a video goes wider than you thought it would. And what happens is when something goes wide, there's a lot of context that gets left out. Being since a 1.0 player and not flashing back to various milestones, referencing a joke that wasn't then put in, referencing individual frustrations about Final Fantasy XIV and not putting them in, talking about what New World's doing well and not putting that in. Like, those are all things that if you follow Brian, you can probably largely guess or follow along a little bit what he's saying. But here it is vague because I don't think this video was meant to become what it's become. It's been reacted to an awful lot.
I feel compelled to give the guy a lot of slack. I wish him well. Yes, he might return for 7.0 as he said. Yes, he'll probably be covering the live letters and maybe he will get interested in return. And if he does, I would hate to see people not want to welcome him back. Like, what if there is a live letter that comes up and he sees something in it that does reignite his interest in the game and he gets excited about the game again, he wants to play the game again, he wants to make content about the game again. If people treat him like shit after that, I'm gonna be pissed about it. Wow, someone said good riddance. And he pinned that comment. I do hope you continue to enjoy the game. That's harsh, man. I feel a little bit out of the loop here because I haven't been watching his latest videos. Like, has he just been pissing off people to the point that a comment like this would get almost 200 likes on this video? Because this is crazy. What did he do that got everybody against him so hard? Jesus Christ. Like, even if he liked the game, how could he stick around with this kind
I
of
think Lionheart
attitude?
individually is joking, but there are some others further down that are not. That are not.